The night Atlanta thought would be quiet exploded with a single glittering photo. Jasmine took to social media wearing a ring so massive it could catch light from across the city. And in seconds, the internet lit up like a siren. A $500,000 diamond sitting boldly on her finger. A ring so bright fans swear it has its own spotlight. But the real shock wasn't the sparkle, it was the name attached to it. Sources close to the love and hip-hop circle claim that the man behind this jaw-dropping proposal is none other than Kirk Frost, Rasheeda's longtime husband and partner in music, business, and years of reality TV drama. Within minutes of the leak, the comment sections turned into battle zones. Fans are shocked, friends are scrambling, and the Frost family is said to be reeling from a betrayal no one saw coming. Eyewitnesses whisper that Rasheeda herself found out not from Kirk, but from the same viral post that sent fans into a frenzy. He wouldn't dare, one insider reportedly gasped, but the evidence is impossible to ignore. That ring, that caption, and the timing right after rumors of tension between Kirk and Rasheeda make this leak feel more like a calculated bomb than an accident. Phones are ringing, cameras are rolling, and emotions are running high as everyone from close friends to casual viewers wonders how Rasheeda will respond. Will she fight to save her marriage? Or will this be the final twist that shatters Atlanta's most talked about couple? Stay right here, because what started as a simple photo could turn into the biggest reality scandal of the year. The room inside Frost Bistro was buzzing long before the doors officially opened. But no one there knew the real reason for the tension in the air. Jasmine sat in a corner booth with her phone face down, the faint outline of that blinding ring catching stray beams from the overhead lights. Her best friend Monique leaned across the table, whispering so hard her voice cracked. "Girl, do you realize what you just did?" Jasmine's hand trembled slightly as she reached for her glass of water. "I only posted one picture," she muttered, though the comment thread on her feed had already climbed past 100,000 in less than an hour. Across town, Kirk's phone buzzed with every ping of the notifications, each one a reminder of a secret that was no longer hidden. He had promised Jasmine a private moment, a quiet plan before the world got involved. But now the world was sitting at their table uninvited. Meanwhile, Rasheeda was wrapping up a meeting in the boutique when she caught sight of the viral post. A young employee gasped loud enough to turn heads, and within seconds the screen was in Rasheeda's hand. The diamond glared back at her like a silent enemy. Her first thought was disbelief. Her second was fury. "This better be a joke," she said under her breath, but the tremor in her voice betrayed the storm rising inside. She called Kirk immediately. No answer. Again. Straight to voicemail. Her third attempt went unanswered too, and with each ring her heart pounded harder against her chest. Employees exchanged worried glances as Rasheeda grabbed her bag and headed for the door, her heels striking the polished floor like a countdown to an explosion. Back at the bistro, Kirk finally arrived, wearing a gray jacket that did nothing to hide the sweat forming along his hairline. He slid into the booth beside Jasmine, his eyes darting to the phone she kept flipping over. "Why now?" he asked in a strained whisper. Jasmine's reply was a mix of defiance and fear. "I didn't plan it, I just wanted to share us." The word us hung in the air like a dangerous spark. Monique leaned back, sensing the heat rising between them. Kirk rubbed his temples. "You know what this means, right? Rasheeda isn't stupid. She's already seen it." Jasmine looked away, blinking fast as if trying to hold back a flood of emotions. "I'm tired of hiding," she said, her voice cracking. "Tired of being a secret while you pretend everything's fine at home." Outside, the crowd that had gathered for a casual night of dining was beginning to buzz with rumors. Phones flashed, whispers turned into full conversations, and strangers craned their necks for a glimpse of the woman wearing $500,000 on her hand. Inside, Kirk's own phone wouldn't stop vibrating. Finally, he picked it up, his voice a low growl. "Rasheeda." Her reply sliced through the noise. "Don't you dare hang up on me." The silence that followed was heavy enough to press against the walls. "Where are you?" she demanded. "We need to talk." Kirk glanced at Jasmine, then back at the glowing screen. "Not now," he said, but the words came out weaker than he intended. Rasheeda's tone sharpened. "Then I'm coming to you. Don't move." The call ended before he could respond. Jasmine's stomach dropped. "She's coming here." Kirk nodded, his jaw tight. Monique reached for Jasmine's hand under the table, squeezing hard. "Girl, you need to leave." But Jasmine shook her head. "No. I'm done running." Outside, headlights cut across the street as a black SUV pulled to a stop. Fans who had been casually filming suddenly raised their cameras higher, sensing the showdown about to unfold. The door swung open, and Rasheeda stepped out with the composure of a queen walking into battle. Her eyes scanned the room the second she entered, locking onto the glitter of the ring like a predator spotting prey. The entire bistro seemed to hold its breath. Conversations stopped mid-sentence, forks froze in midair, and every phone in the room was suddenly aimed at the corner booth. Kirk rose slowly, but Rasheeda's glare kept him rooted. "Really, Kirk, this is what you do now?" Her voice carried across the room with a calm that only made the tension worse. Jasmine sat frozen, her fingers unconsciously tightening around the edge of the table. "Rasheeda, please, not here," Kirk started, but she cut him off with a single raised hand. "Don't, just don't," the crowd murmured, fans whispering to each other about the years of loyalty Rasheeda had shown, the businesses they built together, the countless times she had defended him. Now, the betrayal was playing out live for everyone to witness. Rasheeda stepped closer, her eyes flicking between Kirk and Jasmine. "So this is it, after everything." Kirk opened his mouth but no words came. Jasmine finally found her voice. "It's not what you think, oh, it's exactly what I think," Rasheeda snapped, her tone sharp enough to slice through the heavy air. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the frantic tapping of fans capturing every second for the world to see. Jasmine swallowed hard, the weight of every eye in the bistro pressing against her chest as Rasheeda stood towering at the edge of the booth. Kirk tried to step forward, but Rasheeda's stare froze him in place. "You brought me years of empty promises," Rasheeda said, her voice low but sharp enough for every corner of the room to hear. "And now you want to crown your lies with a $500,000 ring. Who paid for that sparkle?" "Kirk, my loyalty, my silence." Her words struck with the precision of a blade. Jasmine's lips parted, but her breath caught before any sound emerged. The diamond on her finger seemed to burn under the harsh overhead light, its brilliance mocking the mess around it. Kirk finally exhaled, the strain in his voice betraying the calm face he tried to wear. "Rasheeda, it's not like that, you know I don't," she snapped, cutting him off so fast the tables around them flinched. "Don't you dare try to smooth this over while the world watches." The crowd murmured, phones rising higher. Someone whispered, "This is bigger than anything on the show," and a ripple of excitement spread like fire. Fans online were already stitching clips together. The hashtags #Ringgate and #Kirk exposed climbing the trending list by the minute. Monique squeezed Jasmine's hand beneath the table. "Say something," she hissed. Jasmine finally found her voice, a fragile whisper against the tension. "I didn't mean for it to go public." Rasheeda turned, eyes narrowing. "But you meant for it to happen, didn't you?" Jasmine's breath hitched. Kirk said things were over. He said you two were done." Gasps broke out across the bistro, a wave of disbelief rolling over the crowd. Rasheeda's lips trembled, but her gaze never left Kirk. "Is that true?" Kirk's silence was louder than any confession. He looked down, fingers tightening on the back of the booth. "I said we were having problems," he admitted, voice cracking under the weight of 1,000 watching eyes. "I never said it was over." Rasheeda's shoulders stiffened, her breath sharp and shallow. "So you let her believe a lie while you shared my bed and planned our future?" Jasmine's face flushed crimson, her voice breaking. "He told me I was the only one who understood him. He said he needed someone real." Rasheeda laughed, a bitter, humorless sound that sliced through the whispers. "Real. This is what real looks like. A secret ring and a public humiliation." The tension in the room grew so thick that even the clinking of glasses behind the bar seemed to stop. Kirk stepped forward, his hands raised slightly as if trying to calm a storm. "Both of you, please," he began, but neither woman moved. Rasheeda's eyes blazed. "You don't get to mediate now. You started this." Fans outside pressed against the windows, phones flashing as they tried to capture every angle of the unfolding disaster. Inside, the bistro staff exchanged nervous glances, unsure whether to intervene or let the spectacle continue. Jasmine finally stood, the diamond flashing as she clenched her fists. "I didn't ask for this," she said, her voice shaking but growing stronger with each word. "I just wanted him to tell the truth." Rasheeda tilted her head, a faint smirk curling at the edge of her lips. "Congratulations. You got your truth served with a side of shame for the whole world to taste." The crowd erupted in hushed chatter, fans muttering about alliances, betrayals, and the inevitable fallout that would follow. Kirk ran a hand over his face, the weight of his double life collapsing in front of the cameras. "It was supposed to be private," he said softly. "I wanted to figure things out before." Rasheeda cut him off again, her voice a cold, steady flame. "Before what?" "Before you decided which woman deserved the prize. Before you chose which life was worth keeping." Jasmine's eyes glistened with tears as she stepped back, her confidence unraveling under the relentless scrutiny. "I thought he loved me," she whispered, the words trembling like a fragile confession. A collective gasp swept through the room as Rasheeda's expression shifted from anger to a sharp, icy calm. "You thought wrong," she said simply. Then she turned to Kirk, her voice tightening into a quiet threat. "And you, when this night ends, you and I will have a conversation you'll never forget." She spun on her heel and strode toward the exit, cameras flashing as fans scrambled to capture the queen making her exit. Kirk called after her, but his words were drowned by the surge of voices rising inside the restaurant. Outside, Rasheeda's SUV door slammed with a sound that echoed like a closing chapter, but the night was far from over. Social media was already on fire, live streams replaying every cutting word, fan accounts dissecting the moment frame by frame. Inside, Jasmine sank back into the booth, the ring on her hand suddenly feeling heavier than a stone. Monique wrapped an arm around her friend, whispering, "Girl, this isn't the end. This is just the opening act." Kirk stood frozen, staring at the door where Rasheeda had disappeared. The roar of the crowd outside mixing with the storm building inside his own mind. The night outside the bistro had turned electric. A charged haze of flashing lights and anxious whispers that carried across the parking lot. Rasheeda's SUV remained parked at the curb like a silent witness, but inside, the Queen of Atlanta's reality royalty was already fielding calls from friends, producers, and family members, all demanding answers. Her phone vibrated non-stop, each buzz a reminder that this humiliation was no longer private. It was a wildfire racing through every corner of the internet. "Don't you dare post anything," she snapped to her assistant on the line, her voice razor sharp. "We control the narrative, no one else." Behind the tinted windows, she pressed her forehead to the cool glass, willing herself to breathe through the fury boiling just beneath the surface. Back inside, Kirk finally lowered himself into the booth, his shoulders sagging beneath the crushing weight of his choices. Jasmine sat across from him, eyes red but dry, the diamond ring still shimmering like a cruel joke. "Say something," she demanded, her voice brittle. Kirk rubbed the back of his neck. "I never wanted it to go like this." Jasmine leaned forward, her frustration spilling over. "You promised me more than late-night texts and secret dinners. You said you'd leave her." The words landed like a slap. Monique shot Kirk a glare sharp enough to cut steel. "Did you?" she asked, her tone a low growl. Kirk hesitated, his silence louder than any confession. While the tension brewed inside, outside the bistro a small crowd had grown into a swarm. Fans were live streaming on every platform, narrating the chaos in real time. "Y'all, this is insane," one girl said breathlessly into her phone. Rasheeda just stormed out. "Jasmine's still in there, and Kirk looks like he's about to melt. I can feel the drama from here." Comment sections exploded with speculation, some siding with Rasheeda, others blaming Jasmine, and a bold few defending Kirk with wild theories about staged publicity. The family was left divided before the night had even ended. Monique glanced nervously toward the windows, where camera flashes flickered like lightning. "You need to get out of here," she urged Jasmine. "This is turning into a circus." Jasmine shook her head, her voice tight with defiance. "I'm not hiding anymore. Let them see." Kirk finally looked up, his eyes haunted. "You don't understand. This isn't just gossip. This could ruin everything: business deals, contracts, endorsements. Rasheeda and I built a whole empire." Jasmine's reply came cold and sharp. "Then maybe you should have thought about that before you built a life with me too." At that very moment, Rasheeda's best friend and business partner Kelsey burst through the bistro doors, her presence like a sudden storm. She marched straight to the booth, ignoring the stares and raised phones. "Jasmine, we need to talk. Alone." Jasmine stiffened, her hand instinctively covering the ring. "Anything you have to say it here." Kelsey's eyes narrowed. "Fine. Do you have any idea what you've started? My mom is at home crying. Producers are blowing up my phone. You think a flashy ring is worth destroying a family?" Jasmine's jaw tightened, but her voice quivered. "I didn't destroy anything. Kirk made promises." Kelsey shot Kirk a scathing look. "And you believed them?" Kirk leaned forward, frustration breaking through his careful facade. "Enough. This isn't just on me." Jasmine knew what this was. Jasmine recoiled, her voice rising. "Don't you dare put this all on me. You said you loved me. You said Rasheeda was just business now." The room seemed to shrink as their voices clashed, a storm of accusations swirling with no sign of stopping. Fans outside could hear fragments through the glass, their live streams capturing every shouted word. Hashtags like #DiamondDisaster and #FrostFamilyFeud trended within minutes. Meanwhile, Rasheeda was still in the SUV, her eyes fixed on the glowing screen of her phone. She scrolled through comment after comment, each one a dagger. "Queen deserves better. Leave him, sis." $500,000 on her finger, but no loyalty in his heart. Her mother called next, her voice trembling with concern. "Baby, come home. Don't give them a show. Rasheeda closed her eyes, torn between retreat and retaliation. Not yet, she whispered. They need to feel this. Inside, the air grew thick with tension as Kelsey's phone buzzed with a new message. She read it, her eyes widening. Oh my God, she muttered. It's everywhere. TMZ, Shade Room, even mainstream outlets. They're saying Kirk proposed in Dubai and you leaked the photo before the official announcement. Jasmine's mouth dropped. That's a lie. We never went to Dubai. Kirk buried his face in his hands. This is exactly what I was afraid of. The truth doesn't matter anymore. The story already belongs to them. As the night dragged on, whispers of Rasheeda's next move spread through the crowd like sparks on dry grass. Some claimed she was headed to a lawyer's office. Others swore she was on her way back in with cameras of her own. Inside the booth, Jasmine finally slid the ring off her finger, staring at it as though it had betrayed her. It's beautiful, she said quietly, but it feels cursed. Kirk looked up, eyes wet and weary. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Jasmine met his gaze, her own voice trembling. Then why does it feel like this is exactly what you wanted? Before Kirk could answer, a sudden surge of screams erupted outside. Fans partied as Rasheeda stepped back into the bistro, this time with a calm so unnerving it silenced the room. She walked toward the booth with deliberate steps, every heel strike echoing like a countdown. Kirk stood instinctively, his voice shaky. Rasheeda, listen. She held up a hand. Save it. I'm not here to fight. Her eyes moved to Jasmine, then to the ring lying on the table. I'm here to make sure the world knows I don't need to fight for a man who can't tell the truth. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Phones lifted high to capture every word as Rasheeda's quiet strength stole the spotlight from the scandal itself. Rasheeda's words landed like a final gavel strike, and for a long moment the entire bistro seemed to stop breathing. The clinking of silverware, the murmur of conversations, even the faint hum of music from the speakers faded into a heavy silence. She stood with her chin high, eyes steady, letting the crowd drink in the sight of a woman who refused to be broken. Jasmine's hands twitched in her lap as if she wanted to hide the ring, but it was already too late. The world had seen it. The world had chosen its sides. Kirk's voice cracked as he tried to bridge the impossible gap between the two women. Rasheeda, please, let me explain. She turned toward him, her calm somehow sharper than any shouted accusation. Explain. You let another woman wear a ring that cost more than most people's homes, and you want to explain? Kirk's shoulders slumped. I made a mistake. Rasheeda's eyebrow arched, a single gesture that carried the weight of years of loyalty betrayed. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. This, she gestured, toward Jasmine, and the glittering diamond is a choice. Jasmine's voice broke the silence, trembling but determined. I didn't mean to hurt you. Rasheeda turned to her, a faint, almost pitying smile curling her lips. You didn't hurt me. He did. The distinction hung in the air, sharp and clear, slicing through the tension with the precision of a blade. A few people in the crowd murmured in agreement, while others whispered about Jasmine's bravery for speaking at all. Phones rose higher, recording every nuance of Rasheeda's poise. Monique, sensing the room's shifting energy, leaned close to Jasmine and whispered, maybe we should go. But Jasmine shook her head, her eyes never leaving Rasheeda. No, I need to say this. She stood slowly, her knees trembling. I loved him. He made me believe there was a future. If I'm guilty of anything, it's believing his lies. The confession rippled through the audience like a sudden gust of wind. Some gasped, others clutched their phones tighter, eager to replay the words later for their followers. Kirk flinched, his face tightening with guilt. Jasmine, stop, he said under his breath, but she pressed on. No. Everyone deserves to know. He told me he was leaving you. He said you were only staying together for business. Rasheeda's eyes narrowed, though her voice remained steady. Business? She let out a dry, humorless laugh. If I stayed for business, trust me, the business would still be mine when I walked away. Her quiet confidence drew a ripple of approving murmurs from the crowd. A chorus of admiration for the woman who refused to be diminished. Outside, the growing throng of fans was now joined by a cluster of paparazzi, their flashes turning the restaurant windows into a strobe of chaotic light. Live streams picked up every flicker, sending the confrontation to millions in real time. Comment sections exploded with messages like Queen behavior, Kirk cancelled, and Jasmine deserves better. Producers from the show frantically texted crew members, some racing to the scene in hopes of catching footage that would redefine the season. Inside, Kirk finally sank into the booth, his voice low and raw. I never meant to hurt either of you. I thought I could figure it out before it went this far. Rasheeda tilted her head, her expression a mixture of disbelief and cold amusement. Figure it out? You don't experiment with people's lives like we're options on a menu. Her words struck like a slap, each syllable sharp and unflinching. Jasmine clasped her hands together, the ring glinting with every tiny movement. So what now? She asked softly, almost to herself. Rasheeda stepped closer, her eyes fixed on Kirk. Now you live with what you've done. I'm walking away with my dignity intact, my business thriving, and my family beside me. You can keep the ring and the chaos that comes with it. Gasps swept through the room as she reached for her phone and began dialing without waiting for a reply. Kirk rose halfway, panic flickering across his face. Who are you calling? She met his gaze with a cool, unshaken stare. My lawyer. The single word sent a collective shiver through the crowd. Monique tightened her grip on Jasmine's shoulder, whispering, "This is about to get real." Jasmine's face went pale, the full gravity of the night settling over her like a heavy cloak. Kirk's mouth opened, but no sound emerged. He lowered himself back into the booth, his once confident posture collapsing under the weight of a future he could no longer control. Rasheeda turned toward the door, pausing just long enough to let her next words linger like smoke in the air. You both wanted a show. Congratulations. The whole world is watching. With that, she strode out, her heels clicking against the polished floor like the punctuation of a sentence that needed no further explanation. The crowd erupted the moment she disappeared into the night. Conversations overlapped in a deafening chorus of excitement and disbelief. Some rushed outside to catch a glimpse of her departure, while others swarmed Kirk and Jasmine for reactions. The couple remained frozen in place, the glow of 1,000 cameras reflecting off the cursed diamond that had sparked the chaos. Jasmine slowly slid the ring back onto her finger, her expression a tangled mix of defiance and despair. If she thinks this is over, she murmured under her breath, she's wrong. Kirk finally looked up, eyes shadowed with regret. Jasmine, please, he said quietly. This isn't the time. But Jasmine's gaze hardened, her voice steady despite the tremor beneath it. No, Kirk, this is exactly the time. If the world wants a story, I'll give them the truth. The promise in her words sent a fresh wave of murmurs through the crowd, a signal that the night's drama was far from its final act. Outside, sirens wailed faintly in the distance, their approaching sound blending with the relentless chatter of fans who sensed that this scandal had only just begun to unfold. The morning after the courthouse showdown, Atlanta felt heavy with the weight of unanswered questions. Paparazzi vans prowled the streets around Kirk and Rasheeda's gated community, hoping to catch even a flicker of their next move. Inside their home, Rasheeda sat at the edge of her king-size bed, phone buzzing nonstop with messages from friends, family, and producers desperate for a comment. She scrolled past them all, her mind replaying Kendra's trembling confession like a broken record. Across town, Kirk paced the studio hallway, sunglasses hiding eyes bloodshot from a night of restless thoughts. He had built his career on beats and bravado, but this storm had stripped away every layer of control. Kendra, meanwhile, was barricaded inside her downtown condo, blinds drawn, her own phone vibrating against the hardwood floor with calls she couldn't bear to answer. Social media burned hotter by the hour. Hashtags like hashtag Kirk, Kendragate, and hashtag RASHEEDA Freedom climbing worldwide trends. Bloggers speculated about secret bank accounts, DNA tests, and clandestine meetups that stretched back years. The producers of Love and Hip Hop, Atlanta scrambled to rewrite upcoming episodes, sensing ratings gold in the chaos. Rasheeda finally rose, wrapped her robe tighter, and dialed her attorney. Her voice, low but steady, carried a finality that even she found startling. Draw up the papers, she said, each word a quiet explosion. I'm done. Across town, Kirk felt the echo before he heard the news. Some instinct told him the door had closed for good, yet pride kept him from chasing after what he had already shattered. By midday, helicopters hovered over the courthouse as Rasheeda's car pulled up, tinted windows reflecting a swarm of flashing bulbs. Cameras captured the exact moment she stepped out, chin high, wedding ring conspicuously absent. The internet would replay that slow-motion exit for days, dissecting every glance, every breath, every silent goodbye. Inside the courthouse, the air smelled faintly of paper and polish. But to Rasheeda, it felt like the thick atmosphere before a thunderstorm. She walked past the security gate with a poise that masked the storm inside her chest. Reporters shouted questions. Cameras flashed, yet she did not flinch. Each click of her heels down the marble hallway echoed like a verdict she had already accepted. Her attorney greeted her with a folder in hand, eyes sharpened by weeks of preparation. Together they entered a private conference room, where stacks of legal documents waited like quiet witnesses. 2 years of betrayal. Across town, Kirk received a call that froze him midst. His lawyer's measured tone delivered the news. Rasheeda had officially filed. The words rolled through his head, each syllable heavier than the next. For a long moment he stood motionless, the buzzing of studio equipment fading into a hollow silence. Meanwhile, Kendra watched the breaking news banner flash across her television screen. Her heart pounded as she realized that her confession had become the match that ignited a public firestorm. She replayed the moment she told Kirk the truth, wondering if a different choice might have kept them all out of the headlines. Outside the courthouse, fans lined the barricades. Some cheering Rasheeda's courage, others shouting support for Kirk. Each side holding handmade signs like it was a championship game. A sudden cheer rose as Rasheeda emerged again, legal papers tucked beneath her arm. She paused, lifting her face to the cameras with a calm strength that no one could mistake. For the first time in years, she felt the weight of her marriage sliding off her shoulders like an old coat. Kirk, watching a live feed from the studio, clenched his jaw and turned away, unable to witness the quiet dignity with which Rasheeda chose her freedom. Atlanta buzzed with the sound of texts, tweets, and late-night phone calls as the city realized a chapter of hip-hop royalty was closing in real time. The evening sky over Atlanta turned a dusky violet as Rasheeda left the courthouse steps and disappeared into a waiting SUV, the door closing with a soft, decisive thud. Inside the vehicle, she sat back, exhaling a breath she did not know she had been holding for years. The city lights blurred against the window as the car moved, each flicker of neon a reminder of the life she had built and the quiet strength that had carried her here. Across town, Kirk paced his studio floor with a restless energy that even music could not calm. The soundboard sat silent, the usual hum of creativity replaced by the steady beat of his own pulse. He replayed every argument, every late night, every small moment when he might have chosen honesty but instead chose escape. In a dimly lit apartment, Kendra scrolled through social media, the screen glowing with a mix of celebration and outrage. Comments poured in faster than she could read them. Some praised her for exposing the truth, others accused her of destroying a family. Her phone buzzed with calls from friends, producers, and strangers offering interviews. She silenced it all, staring instead at a single photo of herself with Kirk taken months before the scandal broke. Meanwhile, Rasheeda's SUV wound through quiet streets toward her mother's house, where a warm light burned in the kitchen window. She stepped inside to the smell of jasmine tea and the steady comfort of home. Her mother embraced her without a word, sensing the finality of the day. They sat at the table as Rasheeda unfolded the legal papers, her signature a testament to years of endurance and the courage to begin again. Back at the studio, Kirk finally sank into a chair, his head in his hands. The weight of lost trust pressed down harder than any court order. He thought of the nights when laughter once filled their home and wondered if fame had been worth the cost. Outside, the city pulsed with curiosity, but inside each of their hearts a different truth settled. The past could no longer be rewritten, and the next move would define everything that came after. The following hours blurred into a haze of flashing cameras, buzzing phones, and the endless swirl of social media commentary. Rasheeda sat in her mother's kitchen, the glow of the lamp casting a soft halo around her, but her mind was anything but calm. Each notification, each mention of hashtag Kirk exposed or hashtag RASHEED strong felt like both a victory and a reminder of the chaos that had been unleashed. She sipped her tea slowly, letting the warmth steady the storm inside. Outside, fans gathered in clusters, their whispers bouncing against the quiet walls of the neighborhood. Some speculated she would retaliate publicly, some feared the fall of a beloved reality queen. But no one knew the steel that had been forged in those years of loyalty, betrayal, and heartbreak. Meanwhile, Kirk's world had shifted entirely. The studio, once a sanctuary filled with beats and creative energy, felt oppressive and hollow. He scrolled through his phone, each update hitting like a drumbeat in his chest. Clips of the confrontation at the bistro had gone viral within hours, reactions ranging from shock to outright condemnation. Friends called, some to offer support, some to remind him of contracts and obligations now dangling by a thread. He tried to replay the sequence of choices that had led here, searching for a moment when he might have turned back, when honesty could have prevented this spectacle. The truth, he realized, was no longer his own. Kendra sat in her dim apartment, walls lined with framed photos of happier times, the night's events replaying relentlessly in her mind. The confession she had made, the secret she had revealed, had ignited a chain reaction she could no longer contain. Notifications flooded her phone, messages from strangers offering praise, judgment, and everything in between. She felt the weight of being the unintended catalyst in a drama that was spiraling far beyond her control. Her thoughts kept returning to Jasmine, the young woman now thrust into the spotlight by the $500,000 ring, and to Rasheeda, whose dignity had somehow remained untarnished even amidst the spectacle. Back at Rasheeda's mother's house, plans began to take shape. She spoke quietly with her attorney, each word deliberate, each decision measured. "We'll file everything by the end of the week," she said, her voice steady, betraying none of the lingering fury beneath. Her mother listened in silence, nodding with quiet pride, aware that the woman before her had just crossed a threshold from endurance to empowerment. Each phone call, each message that came through, she let pass without reaction. She knew that for the first time in years, the narrative would belong to her, and not to anyone else's whims or lies. Outside, the city was alive with speculation. Fans and paparazzi roamed the streets near both Kirk's and Rasheeda's homes, capturing glimpses of SUVs' darkened windows, and fleeting movements. Social media was a storm of reactions, comments, live streams, and breakdowns, every second feeding into the next. The hashtag #DiamondDrama exploded, intertwining with hashtag Love and Hip Hop, hashtag Kirk Exposed, and hashtag RASHEED, strung in a chaotic tapestry of outrage, support, and endless analysis. Analysts speculated on future collaborations, lost deals, and the effect this scandal would have on the show itself. The internet had become a courtroom, jury, and audience all at once, and no one could escape the verdict being delivered in real time. Inside the SUV taking Rasheeda home, her mind raced even as her exterior remained calm. She thought of every conversation, every private moment, every time she had been sidelined or ignored, and realized that those experiences had prepared her for this exact moment. The public humiliation, the viral clips, the relentless commentary, none of it could diminish the clarity she had found in herself. She would not be a victim. She would not be silenced. She would reclaim the narrative before anyone else could define it. At the same time, Kirk wrestled with his own fractured reality. The people who had once cheered his moves, both personal and professional, now questioned every action, every loyalty, every relationship. Every decision felt magnified, each misstep replayed endlessly on a loop he could not escape. Calls from producers, colleagues, and even friends demanded explanations, apologies, and damage control. He realized that the scandal had shifted beyond personal heartbreak into a public spectacle that could alter his career permanently. The bright lights of fame suddenly felt like a cage, with the cage door locked from the inside. Meanwhile, Jasmine navigated the attention in ways that left her both exhilarated and terrified. The photo of her and the ring, the viral posts, the whispers of betrayal, all created a spotlight she hadn't wanted but could not escape. Fans debated her role, some supporting her bravery in facing a secretive and complicated man, others criticizing her for stepping into a situation that was not hers to command. Each notification, each retweet, each comment was a reminder that she was now a central character in a story far larger than herself. As night fell across Atlanta, a strange calm settled in each of their lives. Though the storm was far from over, Rasheeda plotted her next moves with precise care, Kirk wrestled with the consequences of his choices, and Jasmine contemplated the weight of a reality she had never asked for but could not turn away from. Social media, the fans, and the paparazzi would continue to stir the pot, but each person, in the quiet of their own spaces, faced the same truth. The fallout of that $500,000 ring would echo far beyond a single evening, reshaping relationships, reputations, and futures in ways no one could predict. The early hours of the morning brought a restless energy over the city, a strange quiet that felt almost conspiratorial. While Atlanta slept, Rasheeda was awake, reviewing documents, making calls, and meticulously planning her next public move. Every decision had to be flawless, every statement carefully crafted. She knew the cameras, the social media storm, and the relentless paparazzi were all waiting for her next move. Her attorney sat beside her, papers neatly stacked, and the two worked in silence, the only sound being the occasional hum of the refrigerator and the scratching of pen on paper. The seriousness of the legal documents, the weight of years of betrayal distilled into meticulous legalese, made her realize that this was more than just a scandal. It was a turning point, a chance to redefine not just her public image but her own sense of self. Kirk, on the other hand, was pacing his loft, the city lights casting long, harsh shadows across the walls. He stared at his reflection in the glass window, questioning every choice that had led him here. The images of Jasmine flaunting the ring, Rasheeda's scathing confrontation, and the crowd's reaction played on repeat in his mind. Calls from producers, lawyers, and friends were left unanswered. His phone lying face up with the screen glowing intermittently like a judgmental eye. Every beep felt like an accusation, a reminder that his life, carefully curated and polished for public consumption, was unraveling in real time. Meanwhile, Kendra sat in the corner of her apartment, her phone buzzing incessantly. Every notification was another opportunity to be dragged into the spotlight. Another reminder that her confession had set off a chain reaction she could not control. Her eyes scanned the flood of messages, tweets, and comments. Some praised her bravery, others condemned her, and the rest speculated about the next explosive reveal. The weight of being the catalyst for the story gnawed at her, and for the first time, she wondered if some secrets were too heavy for any human heart to bear. The social media storm had grown into a hurricane. Videos of Rasheeda storming out of the bistro, Kirk standing frozen, and Jasmine holding the sparkling ring were shared across platforms, millions of views stacking within hours. Live streams captured fans speculating about secret rendezvous, hidden relationships, and the motives behind every word and glance. Comment sections became war zones, each fan choosing a side, each accusation fueling the fire. Hashtags like #DiamondDrama, #RASHEEDA wins, and #KirkExposed were trending worldwide, pulling the scandal into international conversations. Analysts on entertainment channels debated the implications for future seasons of Love and Hip Hop, Atlanta, pondering if this real-life drama could surpass anything scripted. Inside the SUV, driving Rasheeda through the quiet streets, she allowed herself a moment of reflection. Years of loyalty, love and patience had been met with betrayal and secrecy. Yet she had emerged from the bistro, not broken but empowered. The $500,000 ring had symbolized more than just wealth. It was the trigger for truth, exposure, and ultimately, reclamation of her narrative. Her fingers absent-mindedly traced the edge of her coffee cup as she considered the steps ahead. Legal actions, public statements, and personal boundaries that could no longer be crossed. Each plan, precise and deliberate, was another step toward regaining control of her life. Kirk, alone in his loft, could feel the walls closing in. The reality he had tried to manipulate into perfection was crumbling, leaving him vulnerable in front of a world that had once celebrated him. He had underestimated the consequences of lies, of divided loyalties, and of the ripple effect that a single act of deception could unleash. Every text he received, every post he scrolled past, served as a reminder that the public was no longer willing to see him as the charming, untouchable figure he had cultivated. The glamour and glitz felt hollow now, replaced with the weight of accountability he could no longer avoid. Jasmine, meanwhile, wrestled with her own conflicting emotions. The excitement of the proposal had long since dissipated, replaced by the dizzying reality of exposure and the impossible triangle of emotions surrounding her. The ring, once a symbol of love and promise, now felt like a chain, a glittering emblem of chaos she could neither deny nor fully embrace. Her friends urged caution, whispering about the public's insatiable appetite for scandal. But she felt an internal pull to speak her truth, to claim her part of the story before it was rewritten by others. The line between reality and performance blurred, and she found herself questioning every step, every word, every glance that had led to this night. The city itself seemed to pulse with anticipation. Fans and paparazzi alike were no longer just observers, they were participants, adding commentary, speculation, and pressure to a narrative that had escaped its original confines. From luxury condos to dimly lit apartments, from bustling streets to the quiet corners of private homes, Atlanta was awake to the drama, alive with the tension that comes when private lives become public spectacle. The consequences of that $500,000 ring stretched far beyond the bistro, threading through every interaction, every conversation, and every public perception. By mid-morning, Rasheeda had reached her next stop, a private meeting with her family and closest allies. The goal was simple, yet profound, to ensure that every step moving forward was deliberate, unshakable, and free from the kind of manipulation that had defined the past years. She was calm, deliberate, and unyielding, each word measured, each decision a brick in a foundation of reclaiming both dignity and authority. Meanwhile, Kirk's phone buzzed again. He ignored it, staring out at the city, knowing that while the social media storm raged, the real battle, the internal reckoning, the consequences of betrayal was only just beginning. Jasmine, caught between relief, heartbreak, and a newly found determination, made plans of her own. She contacted friends, producers, and confidants, each call carefully considered, each conversation a subtle reclamation of control. She knew the public would continue to speculate, and while some may side with her, others would not. The reality, however, was that she would no longer be a silent participant in a narrative orchestrated by someone else. She had her voice, her truth, and now, a stage upon which to reveal them. As the day wore on, Atlanta seemed suspended in tension, each actor in this drama playing out moves in a high-stakes chess game that would define reputations, relationships, and futures. Rasheeda's poised command, Kirk's spiraling desperation, and Jasmine's cautious empowerment were threads of a larger narrative, one that the world watched unfold in real time. Every notification, every hashtag, every whispered speculation added layers to a story that was no longer confined to private space, if it become a public, sprawling spectacle. And as night approached, each of them understood the same unspoken truth. Nothing would ever be the same again. The night deepened, draping Atlanta in shadows that mirrored the uncertainty gripping each of them. Rasheeda, now back in the sanctuary of her mother's home, reviewed the events of the day with a quiet intensity. Each moment, the confrontation at the bistro, the viral photos, the flurry of calls and texts was catalogued and dissected in her mind. She knew that the public would latch on to every detail, twisting interpretations, speculating motives, and creating narratives that she might never control entirely. Yet, for the first time, she felt a sense of liberation. The ring, the betrayal, the spectacle, it no longer dictated her sense of self. She could craft her own story, step into her power, and leave the chaos where it belonged, behind her. Kirk, meanwhile, felt the weight of the day pressing in from all sides. The studio, once a place of refuge and creativity, now felt like a cage of his own making. Calls from lawyers, producers, and friends went unanswered, each buzz a reminder of mistakes too consequential to ignore. He paced, hands running through his hair, eyes darting to his phone as though it held answers it could not possibly provide. The image of Jasmine's hand glinting with the diamond, the viral clips of Rasheeda's composure, haunted him. He realized that public perception had shifted irreversibly, and with it, the delicate balance he had maintained in his personal and professional life had been shattered. Jasmine, too, was enveloped by the relentless pull of the scandal. She sat in her apartment, staring at the ring on her finger. Its glitter now, a sharp reminder of promises broken and truths revealed. Calls, messages, and notifications created a constant hum around her, blending judgment with support, speculation with concern. She was caught between the desire to retreat and the need to assert her voice in a story that had suddenly made her both central and exposed. Every glance at social media reinforced that she was no longer a silent participant. She had become a pivotal character in a drama the world consumed with insatiable curiosity. Outside, the city buzzed with the aftermath. Fans gathered near hotspots associated with each of them, some hoping for glimpses, others capturing footage, all speculating endlessly about what would come next. Social media ran wild, hashtags multiplying like wildfire. Hashtag Diamond Drama. Hashtag Rashidans. Hashtag Kirk Exposed. Hashtag Jasmine Speaks. Analysts debated, commentators speculated, and millions watched as the narrative evolved faster than anyone could predict. Every post, every livestream, every comment contributed to the spectacle, feeding a cycle that no one could fully control. Back at her mother's home, Rasheeda's next moves were deliberate and calculated. She met with her attorney, her team, and trusted confidants, reviewing legal documents, drafting statements, and preparing for public engagement. She understood that every word spoken, every document filed, and every public appearance carried weight, influence, and consequence. Her composure never faltered, her clarity never wavered. The events of the day, while chaotic, had provided a catalyst for empowerment she had long sought. For the first time, the narrative would be hers to shape. Kirk, in isolation, reflected on the ripple effects of his actions. The weight of lost trust, public scrutiny, and fractured relationships pressed down relentlessly. Friends offered advice, producers suggested strategies, but none of it could undo the spectacle that had erupted from his choices. He realized that while fame and fortune had once insulated him, the truth now stripped away that protective veneer. Each call ignored, each decision delayed, only compounded the tension, leaving him trapped in the consequences of a narrative spun out of his control. Jasmine, despite her own turmoil, began taking steps to reclaim agency. Calls to friends, careful social media engagement, and thoughtful reflection allowed her to navigate a path forward. She recognized that the public had made her a central figure in a story she hadn't fully chosen. But she refused to remain passive. Every action, every word, was measured with the intent to assert control over her own voice, to ensure that the world would hear her perspective amidst the cacophony of speculation. As midnight approached, the city itself seemed to echo their tension. Streetlights cast long shadows, fans and paparazzi roamed, and social media buzzed with unrelenting energy. Within this environment, each of them confronted the same reality: the past could not be changed. The public eye was relentless, and the path forward would be defined not by reaction alone, but by decisive action. Rasheeda's calm authority, Kirk's desperation, and Jasmine's emerging strength formed the intricate web of drama that would continue to captivate, shock, and inspire speculation long after the night ended. In quiet moments, each reflected on their own stakes. Rasheeda measured the cost of betrayal against the value of self-respect and dignity. Kirk weighed fame and fortune against the irretrievable fracture of trust. Jasmine balanced exposure and scrutiny against the right to voice her truth. Together, these intertwined stories formed a narrative of love, deception, empowerment, and consequence, one that the world consumed ravenously, hungry for every twist and turn, every revelation, every subtle gesture and word. The night stretched onward, a silent witness to personal reckonings and public spectacle alike. The streets buzzed with speculation, screens glowed in darkened apartments, and every heart involved beat with the knowledge that nothing would ever be the same again. The scandal had exploded beyond a single ring, a single conversation, or a single night. It had become a force, reshaping relationships, reputations, and futures in ways that no one could yet fully comprehend. And as Atlanta slept or tried to, the drama only continued to unfold, layer by layer, moment by moment, until each of them would face the next chapter of consequences, revelations, and choices that could not be undone. The first rays of dawn cut through the heavy night like a blade, painting the city in muted shades of gold and pink. Rasheeda remained in her mother's home, the soft morning light illuminating her calm but determined expression. Overnight, social media had exploded with speculation about her next moves, about Kirk's inevitable response, and about Jasmine's place in the tangled web of betrayal and exposure. She sipped her tea deliberately, savoring the warmth, letting the day ahead settle into focus. Today would be different. Today, she would step forward not as a victim of circumstance, but as the author of her own story. Kirk, restless and anxious, could feel the pressure mounting. Sleep had eluded him entirely, his mind replaying every conversation, every argument, every glance from the night before. The images of Jasmine holding the $500,000 ring, Rasheeda's icy composure, and the watching crowd were burned into his memory. Calls came in from lawyers, producers, and friends, each one demanding answers he could not yet provide. His studio, once a sanctuary of music and fame, now felt like a prison of accountability, the walls closing in with the weight of public scrutiny and private regret. Jasmine, awake in her own apartment, stared at her phone as messages, notifications, and news alerts swirled endlessly. Her initial excitement had long been replaced by a whirlwind of emotions: anxiety, regret, defiance, and a newfound clarity. The viral photos of her hand, adorned with the glittering ring, had made her a focal point of a scandal she never intended to ignite. Yet amidst the chaos, a quiet resolve began to emerge. She would no longer remain a passive participant in a story dictated by others. Her voice, her perspective, and her truth would have their place in the narrative. Across the city, fans and paparazzi had begun their morning routines, still buzzing with anticipation and speculation. The previous night's events had become fodder for endless live streams, commentary, and debate. Hashtags like #DiamondDrama, #RASHEEDA wins, and #KirkExposed continued to trend, drawing millions into the orbit of the scandal. Analysts, bloggers, and commentators dissected every frame, every gesture, every expression, predicting future confrontations and outcomes. The spectacle had moved beyond a single venue or moment. It was now a force permeating the entire city, shaping public perception and personal reputations alike. Rasheeda, fully aware of the stakes, convened with her closest allies and her legal team. Every step, every decision, was deliberate. Each public statement, each social media post, each interaction would be measured and strategic. Her poise and clarity radiated through the room, leaving no doubt that she was prepared to navigate the storm with authority and grace. She understood that the public's fascination with the drama would persist, and that controlling her narrative was essential to emerging not just unscathed, but strengthened. Kirk, isolated in his loft, wrestled with a harsh new reality. Fame and fortune, once his armor, now offered no protection. Every misstep, every deception, was magnified in the glare of public scrutiny. He reflected on choices that had seemed inconsequential at the time, now revealed as pivotal in the unraveling of relationships and trust. The social media storm, the relentless public commentary, and the internal reckoning created a pressure cooker environment that left him both desperate and disoriented. Jasmine, too, recognized the need to act carefully. Her emerging clarity prompted her to reach out to confidants, friends, and professionals who could help her navigate the complex interplay of public attention and personal reality. She realized that while the $500,000 ring had sparked a scandal, it had also provided her a platform to assert her perspective. Every action, every carefully considered word, would influence not only her own trajectory but the unfolding story in which she was now undeniably central. As mid-morning settled in, Atlanta pulsed with life, speculation, and tension. Streets hummed with activity, phones glowed in dim apartments, and social media continued to churn, connecting millions to the drama as it unfolded in real time. Each character faced the dual realities of personal reckoning and public performance, their choices magnified by the relentless gaze of the world. Rasheeda's strategic planning, Kirk's spiraling anxiety, and Jasmine's cautious empowerment intertwined, forming a web of suspense, consequence, an intrigue that would continue to captivate audiences both locally and internationally. By late morning, Rasheeda moved forward with a series of carefully timed public statements and appearances, her composure intact, her confidence unwavering. Kirk, aware that the world now judged his every move, struggled to regain any semblance of control, while Jasmine cautiously began to assert her own narrative. Each step, each decision, further shaped the story that had already captured the public imagination. The day stretched onward, a canvas for strategy, reflection, and confrontation. Each of them, in their own space, navigated the delicate balance of private pain and public scrutiny, understanding that the ramifications of a single night, a single ring, and a single confrontation would echo far beyond the immediate moment. As Atlanta moved through the day, the drama continued to unfold, layer by layer, each revelation building upon the last, ensuring that the world watched with bated breath, hungry for every twist, every confession, and every gesture that might hint at the next chapter of this unforgettable story. The afternoon sun cast long shadows over Atlanta, and the city seemed almost to hold its breath as the scandal continued to unfold. Rasheeda, having spent the morning meticulously planning her next steps, now prepared for her first public statement since the bistro confrontation. She dressed carefully, each detail selected to project calm, authority, and undeniable confidence. Her team surrounded her, a silent support network ensuring that no misstep could be made in front of the cameras and waiting microphones. As she exited the house, the flash of cameras and the roar of social media alerts greeted her like the storm she had been anticipating. Yet she walked with the measured poise of someone who knew exactly what she wanted: to reclaim her story and assert her narrative in the most decisive terms. Kirk, still isolated in his loft, watched the unfolding events with a mix of dread and disbelief. His phone buzzed with notifications he could barely bring himself to read. Each clip, each live stream, each analysis felt like another hammer striking against the fragile structure of his carefully curated public persona. Friends called, offering advice or condemnation. Producers demanded explanations. Fans debated endlessly across platforms. The weight of his choices pressed upon him in a way he had never experienced. The ring, once a symbol of romance and success, had become a lightning rod for chaos, and every action he considered now seemed insufficient to undo the damage. Jasmine, too, was navigating the growing maelstrom. She had spent the morning fielding calls and messages, her phone a constant reminder of the unrelenting attention surrounding her. The diamond that had symbolized promise and excitement now glinted as an emblem of exposure and complex entanglement. She contemplated her own strategy, understanding that every statement, every social media post, every interaction could influence both her future and the trajectory of the scandal itself. She moved carefully, balancing caution with the desire to assert her own voice, to ensure that she was not reduced to a footnote in a story dominated by betrayal, fame, and public spectacle. Social media churned without pause. Fans gathered near the spots associated with each of the key players, cameras in hand, eager to capture any slip, any gesture, any hint of what might come next. Hashtags like #DiamondDrama, #RASHEEDA wins, and #KirkExposed trended worldwide, pulling audiences into a story that seemed to unfold faster than any could keep pace with. Analysts debated motives, predicted outcomes, and speculated on future conflicts. Every video clip, every live broadcast, every whispered rumor added layers to the narrative, turning a personal crisis into a public obsession. Inside her SUV, Rasheeda reflected on the careful steps she had taken, Years of loyalty, love, and patience had brought her here, and she understood that the $500,000 ring had served as both catalyst and symbol. It had exposed deception, revealed truths, and allowed her to reclaim control. She allowed herself a brief smile at the realization that the chaos, while relentless, had propelled her into empowerment. The public may have wanted drama, but she intended to give them clarity, dignity, and authority. Kirk's loft, by contrast, felt like a pressure cooker. His thoughts raced as he considered every way to contain the fallout, to salvage both reputation and relationships. Yet each attempt seemed futile in the face of relentless public scrutiny. The viral images, the trending hashtags, and the endless commentary had created an environment where perception often mattered more than reality. Every misstep, every delayed response, amplified the consequences of the previous night's chaos. He realized, painfully, that controlling the narrative was no longer within his reach. He could only react, and even then, with limited efficacy. Jasmine, cautiously asserting her own role in the unfolding drama, began to plan her next moves. Each call, each conversation, each carefully considered post was part of a strategy to maintain agency in a narrative that had placed her squarely in the center. The ring, once a symbol of private joy, had transformed into a public emblem of scandal, and she understood that her next actions would be scrutinized, dissected, and speculated upon at every turn. Her challenge was to navigate the attention with poise, ensuring that her voice and perspective were neither silenced nor misrepresented. By late afternoon, the city's streets were alive with the energy of speculation and anticipation. Fans and paparazzi moved through familiar locations, capturing images, recording videos, and documenting the unfolding story. Social media continued to churn, a relentless pulse of hashtags, posts, comments, and live streams that created a sense of urgency and immediacy. Analysts debated the long-term consequences for all parties involved, while fans argued passionately about loyalty, betrayal, and justice. The drama had transcended private lives and become a public spectacle, shaping perceptions and influencing conversations across the globe. As the evening approached, Rasheeda prepared for her carefully timed media appearances. Every word, every gesture, every nuance was meticulously calculated to assert control, to reclaim dignity, and to define her own narrative. Kirk, meanwhile, continued to grapple with the consequences of choices that had spiraled beyond his control. Jasmine, navigating the intersection of exposure and agency, prepared to assert her voice within a story that had thrust her into the spotlight. In the quiet moments between public appearances, each of them confronted the reality that nothing would ever be the same. The $500,000 ring had been the trigger, but the resulting drama had transformed relationships, reputations, and futures in ways that could not be undone. As Atlanta moved through the fading light of day into night, the storm of attention, speculation, and consequence continued unabated, each participant aware that the next steps they took would define the chapters yet to unfold in a story that had already captured the world's attention. Kirk Frost never imagined that one glittering stone could set fire to an entire empire. But when Jasmine lifted her hand and the $500,000 diamond ring caught the light, the whole room gasped as though Atlanta itself had stopped breathing. Because this was not just a piece of jewelry, it was proof of a secret promise, a leak of a proposal that was supposed to be buried in shadows. And as the footage spread from phone to phone, the whispers grew into shouts, fans screaming that Kirk had gone too far, that Rasheeda had been betrayed in the loudest, most humiliating way. Yet what made it worse was the way Jasmine smiled, that subtle smirk of a woman who knew she held all the power, waving her hand like a queen whose crown had finally been placed on her head. And behind the scenes, the producers scrambled, trying to control a wildfire that was now racing across social media, Twitter threads, Instagram Reels, and YouTube Lives, each platform drowning in commentary as people picked apart every detail of the leaked video. From the way Kirk's voice trembled when he said the words, "Will you," to the way Jasmine's nails, painted blood red, clutched his wrist like she had no intention of ever letting go, while Rasheeda, blindsided in real time, collapsed into silence, her phone lighting up with notifications she couldn't bear to open, fans tagging her, enemies mocking her, and even so-called friends sending her screenshots of the ring, as though she had not already seen it, as though she needed more salt ground into her open wound. And that silence turned into a storm inside her chest, the kind of storm that breaks a woman not just as a wife but as a public figure, a mother, a brand. Because Rasheeda knew that once the world believed Kirk had chosen Jasmine, no amount of denial could undo the image now burned into everyone's memory, that glittering diamond flashing under the spotlight of scandal. And as Kirk tried to explain, tried to stammer out excuses about staging, about editing, about context. No one wanted to hear him. Not even Kendra, who had been defending him for months. Not even Yandi, who usually stayed neutral but this time admitted that the ring looked too real, too intentional, too final. And the streets of Atlanta buzzed with one unforgiving phrase: Rasheeda's done. Because how could she stand on love and hip-hop stages? How could she smile in boutiques? How could she rap about loyalty when the man she stood beside had allegedly slipped a $500,000 rock onto the finger of the one woman who had already destroyed their marriage once before? And the betrayal bled into every conversation, every dinner table, every barbershop debate, even reaching radio shows where DJs replayed the leaked audio over and over, analyzing Kirk's tone, Jasmine's giggle, the champagne cork that popped in the background. And fans called in crying, angry, saying they had rooted for Rasheeda, that they had defended Kirk through scandal after scandal. But this was the final straw. The kind of humiliation you don't bounce back from. And Mona Scott, watching the chaos unfold, realized that the ratings were about to skyrocket, that this ring had given her the most explosive storyline of the season. Yet she also knew that Rasheeda was not a character. She was a woman whose tears were now real, whose pain was now undeniable. And Mona debated whether to pull the footage, whether to protect Rasheeda. But the network executives were clear: keep it rolling. Keep it messy, because mess sells. And as Jasmine leaned further into the spotlight, posting cryptic captions about being chosen and forever, Rasheeda broke down live on Instagram, her voice cracking, her hands trembling as she admitted she could no longer carry the weight of Kirk's betrayals. That watching Jasmine flaunt the ring was like dying while still breathing. And the comments section exploded with fans begging her to leave, demanding justice, some even threatening boycotts if she forgave him again. And Kirk, caught between two worlds, tried to patch holes in a ship that had already sunk, offering explanations no one believed, trying to turn the narrative against Jasmine, but every attempt only fueled her confidence, because the ring gleamed brighter than his words, a piece of evidence no denial could erase. And as the city braced for confrontation, Rasheeda prepared her final goodbye, a goodbye laced with both heartbreak and power. Because while Kirk and Jasmine thought they had written the ending, Rasheeda was about to reclaim the pen, standing tall before cameras with swollen eyes and a steady voice, declaring that she was done being embarrassed, done carrying someone else's shame. And, as her word spread, fans rallied behind her like never before, showering her with love, promising her she was bigger than this scandal, that she deserved better, that she was Atlanta's queen with or without Kirk. And yet in the shadows, the ring still glittered, mocking her, daring her to believe that closure was ever possible, because as long as that $500,000 diamond sat on Jasmine's finger, the wound could never heal, the whispers could never end, and the streets would never stop buzzing about the night. Kirk Frost's secret proposal leaked and turned love and hip-hop into the most chaotic storm it had ever seen. A storm that still rages as you watch this story unfold right now. And if you thought this chapter was shocking, just wait until you see what happens next. Because the fallout from that $500,000 ring is far from over, and every second that passes only adds more fuel to the fire. So here's what you need to do. Don't just click away. Lock in with us. Hit that subscribe button right now and join the community that refuses to miss a single twist. Because the drama is moving fast, the alliances are shifting, and Rasheeda's every decision will reshape the entire landscape of love and hip-hop Atlanta. We're dropping updates daily, breaking down every leak, every live, every cryptic post, and you need to be right here to catch it first. Smash that like button if you believe Rasheeda deserves better. Drop your thoughts in the comments to let the world know where you stand: Team Rasheeda, Team Jasmine, or is Kirk beyond redemption? Your voice matters, and together we are louder than the producers, louder than the networks, louder than the lies they try to spin. Because when fans unite, the truth gets heard. So don't sit back and watch this from the sidelines. Be part of the movement. Be part of the army that demands answers, and make sure you share this video with your friends, your group chats, anyone who needs to see how wild this has become. And remember, this is only the beginning. The ring was just the spark. The explosion is coming, and you're going to want front row seats. Subscribe now, turn on that notification bell, and keep riding with us, because the next leak, the next betrayal, the next bombshell could drop at any moment, and when it does, you'll want to be the first to say you saw it here.